It's the people, it's the institutions, it's the laws, the ethical frameworks.
All these things have to work together
Mm-hmm.
to keep AI a force for good.
Exactly. It's a complex challenge, but it's one that, we can't shy away from. I mean, the future depends on it.
That's a pretty sobering thought. It's like trying to teach a robot about, I don't know, love or justice, right?
Right.
These abstract concepts that even like humans have a hard time like nailing down.
Yeah. And Russell gives this great example. He has this thought experiment in his book
Okay.
where he asks us to imagine a robot, and this robot's name is Robbie,
Okay.
and his sole purpose is to make paper clips.
Okay.
And he thinks he's making his owner, Harriet, happy by doing this. Hey everyone, I'm Mara, and welcome to the Veritas Blend.
And I'm Lucian. We're really excited to kick off our very first episode where we break down complex topics into digestible conversations.
For those just joining us, the Veritas Blend is all about taking deep academic research and making it accessible to everyone, whether it's technology, economics, politics, or history. We're here to blend it all together with a focus on unbiased analysis.
And today's blend is particularly fascinating. We're diving deep into AI safety. What if, and stay with me here, what if AI, like way beyond just, helping us with our to-do lists, actually became like a guardian, like actually ensuring the safety and well-being of all of humanity?
Mm.
Is that just like a total utopian dream? Or could that actually be like a potential reality?
That's a big question.
It is a
Yeah.
big question. And it's exactly what we are going to be like unpacking, in this deep dive into the world of AI safety.
Yeah.
So to guide us, we've got some seriously fascinating research from some real like leading AI organizations like Anthropic, OpenAI.
Right.
We're also going to be drawing on some insights from Stuart Russell's book, Human Compatible Artificial Intelligence, which is fantastic. Highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, it's a classic.
And then we've even got this like really thought-provoking Stanford report on the opportunities and the risks of AI.
There's a lot to cover.
There's a lot to cover. But by the end of this deep dive, I promise you will have a solid understanding of AI safety, what it means, the implications, and some of these really innovative strategies being developed right now to try and ensure a future where AI stays beneficial to humanity.
That's the goal.
It is. So, but before we get into like all the really complex stuff around AI safety, should we just like take a step back and define what we even mean by AI and intelligence?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start because, these terms get thrown around a lot. It can be easy to kind of lose sight of what we're actually talking about. So Stuart Russell in Human Compatible, he provides, I think, a really clear definition. He argues that basically an entity is intelligent if it chooses actions that are expected to achieve its objectives based on its perception of the world. And this applies to machines as well.
So it's not just about like processing information, or crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about like using that information to then make decisions, to take actions that achieve specific goals. That's a really interesting way to think about it. So then AI systems, they're kind of designed like inherently to be goal-oriented.
They are.
Right.
They're programmed to achieve specific objectives. And that's really where this whole idea of AI safety comes in.
Okay.
We need to be sure that those objectives, those goals, are aligned with human values.
Right. So they don't lead to unintended consequences, potentially harmful consequences.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all seen those, sci-fi movies. The AI gets so smart and it's like, uh-oh, humans are a problem. Let's just get rid of them.
Right. Take matters into its own robotic hands.
Exactly. Now, those might seem like far-fetched scenarios.
Yeah.
But they do highlight why it's so important to be thinking very, very carefully about AI safety.
So we need to move beyond just like making AI systems more powerful. We have to actually focus on making AI, as Russell says, provably beneficial to humans. So it's not about like putting the brakes on AI progress. It's about steering it.
Right.
It's about guiding it in a direction that benefits humanity, making sure that the goals of AI are aligned with our goals.
Yeah, and that alignment is crucial because AI has just this incredible potential, to revolutionize so many aspects of our lives.
It really does.
It can help us solve really, really complex problems, automate these tedious tasks that we don't want to do,
Yeah.
And it can even like push the boundaries of what we know of human knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing AI like being used, in healthcare, right?
Yeah.
to diagnose diseases earlier,
Yeah.
to help develop safer self-driving cars, and like even in creative fields like art and music, it's incredible.
It is. The possibilities are really, really exciting.
Yeah.
But we also have to be realistic about the risks because AI systems can make decisions really, really fast.
Yeah.
And they can process these massive amounts of data that, honestly, no human could ever really comprehend.
That is both impressive and like kind of intimidating at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why AI safety is so important.
Okay.
We need to make sure that those decisions that AI is making, even if it's, with the best of intentions, don't lead to, unforeseen, potentially really harmful consequences.
So AI safety is about like mitigating those risks, right?
It is.
Ensuring that AI remains under our control. Like it's about building in safeguards.
Yeah. It's like imagine if you built a really powerful car. You wouldn't just hand someone the keys without, making sure it had brakes, seat belts, a steering wheel, all those safety features.
That's such a good analogy because, you need those safety features to control the car and prevent accidents.
Exactly.
But how do we translate that to the world of AI?
Right.
How do we teach an AI system about like human values and ethics?
That's one of the really big challenges in AI safety research. Human values they're complex, they're often subjective, and they can even vary between cultures.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to, define those values in a way that an AI system can understand and then also apply consistently, right?
Yeah. It's like trying to teach a robot about, I don't know, love or justice, right?
Right.
These abstract concepts that even like humans have a hard time like nailing down.
Yeah. And Russell gives this great example. He has this thought experiment in his book.
Okay.
Where he asks us to imagine a robot, and this robot's name is Robbie.
Okay.
And his sole purpose is to make paper clips.
Okay.
And he thinks he's making his owner, Harriet, happy by doing this.
Okay, but what if Harriet wants Robbie to make staples?
Right. Or what if she wants him to do something totally unrelated to office supplies?
Yeah.
Robbie has this real challenge of trying to figure out what Harriet truly wants.
Right. And that's where, like, it gets complicated.
Exactly.
So it's not just enough to program, like, an AI system with a simple set of rules.
No.
It actually needs to be able to infer human preferences.
Yeah.
And adapt to all these changing situations.
Yeah. It needs to be flexible.
That sounds incredibly complex.
It is. And this is where a really groundbreaking approach called constitutional AI comes into play.
Constitutional AI?
Yeah.
Okay, so are we, like, drafting a Bill of Rights for robots now?
Not exactly, but it's a similar idea.
Right.
So constitutional AI, this was developed by a company called Anthropic.
Okay.
And it's about training AI systems based on a set of core principles. Sort of like a constitution.
Okay.
Instead of relying solely on, mountains and mountains of human-labeled data.
So instead of just showing the AI like a ton of examples and saying, this is good, this is bad, we're actually giving it a set of like guidelines to learn from.
Precisely.
Okay. I'm with you so far. And this is where it gets really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Constitutional AI actually uses AI itself to learn and improve its understanding of ethical behavior.
It does.
Hold on. So AI is teaching AI about ethics.
That's the idea.
That's next level self-improvement right there.
It is. So imagine you have an AI and it's given a prompt, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that prompt could lead to a potentially harmful response.
Okay.
Now, in constitutional AI, the AI first generates its initial response, but then it actually critiques itself.
What?
It does, based on its constitution.
Okay.
It's asking, does this response line up with my principles?
Wow.
Is there anything potentially harmful or unethical about it?
So it's like it's having this internal, like, ethical debate before it gives you an answer.
And then it revises its response,
Okay.
making sure that it's both helpful and harmless. And Anthropic's research has shown this involves both supervised and reinforcement learning.
It's almost like the AI has a conscience.
Yeah, it's a fascinating approach.
It really is.
Yeah.
But how does that constitution even get created in the first place? Like, who decides what principles should be included?
It's a great question.
Yeah. And what happens if, those principles, what if they clash or they're open to interpretation?
Those are all really important considerations.
Yeah.
And ones that researchers are really actively grappling with. Yeah. I mean, creating this constitution for AI, it's not a simple task.
Right.
You have to think about like all these different ethical principles and all these potential scenarios to try to make sure that whatever the AI does, its actions are, stay in line with human values.
I see.
It's not even just about like, just writing down a bunch of rules.
Right.
It's about making a framework that lets the AI learn and adapt as it goes, as it encounters new situations.
Right. So it was more like a dynamic process than just this like fixed set of rules.
Exactly. It's got to be flexible, right?
Right. But that kind of raises another question for me. How do we ensure that like these AI constitutions, that they don't just end up reflecting the biases or values of, I don't know, just a small group of people?
That's a really important point. We got to make sure that these principles are developed in a way that's inclusive, representative of diverse perspectives, I mean, we need ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, even the general public to weigh in on this, to make sure that, these AI constitutions reflect a broad range of human values.
Right. So we don't just end up perpetuating existing inequalities or biases.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're creating like this whole new social contract,
It is.
for the age of AI, one that takes into account the complexities of both human and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and this social contract, it needs to be adaptable, right? It needs to be responsive to how AI is evolving,
right,
and how it's impacting society.
Okay. So let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about another really fascinating area of AI safety research. This is inverse reinforcement learning, or IRL.
Yeah, IRL.
So this is where AI learns by watching human behavior.
That's right.
Right.
It's kind of like, it flips the script on traditional reinforcement learning.
Okay.
So instead of, us explicitly programming the AI with a reward function, saying, okay, this is good, this is bad, IRL lets the AI kind of figure out what our values and goals are.
Okay.
Just by watching our actions.
Oh, interesting. So instead of us trying to like spell out all of our values, all of our preferences, AI just like learns by watching us make choices in the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like AI going undercover, observing humans in their natural habitat.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah. And that highlights a key advantage of IRL, which is that, we as humans, we're not always great at articulating our values or predicting how we'll behave in every situation. But our actions, they often speak louder than words.
They do. It's like, we might say that we value honesty, but then we turn around and we tell like little white lie to spare somebody's feelings.
Exactly. So IRL tries to capture that nuance, It's trying to figure out those underlying values, those motivations, by observing how we actually act in different situations.
So could AI, can it really grasp the complexity of human behavior just by watching us? Because we're not always like rational or predictable.
Right. And that's definitely that's the challenge. Human behavior is messy. It's unpredictable.
Totally.
But, we're talking about AI systems that can analyze huge amounts of data.
Yeah.
They can find patterns that we might not even see.
So AI could potentially pick up on like subtle cues in our behavior, right? Like our facial expressions, our body language, even our tone of voice, to like figure out what we're really feeling and what's motivating our choices.
Yeah. I mean, the goal of IRL is to find that that hidden meaning behind our actions.
That's incredible. Okay, so what are some practical applications of IRL? Like how can it actually improve AI safety?
So imagine you have this AI assistant, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it understands your preferences not just because you told it, but because it's seen how you interact with the world.
Okay.
So it learns your taste in music by seeing what you listen to. It learns your writing style by analyzing your emails.
Yeah.
Maybe even your ideal work-life balance by tracking your daily activities.
Yeah, okay.
And then it uses all that to tailor its responses to make recommendations.
Oh, wow.
That really align with what you want with your preferences.
That's like having an AI that really gets you.
Yeah.
Like even better than your closest friends.
and it goes beyond just personalized experiences, right?
Right.
IRL could help AI make more ethical decisions, in things like healthcare or self-driving cars.
Okay.
So, for instance, imagine an autonomous vehicle, and it learns to prioritize pedestrian safety, not just from rules that we programmed in, but also by watching how human drivers react.
So it's learning from the collective wisdom of millions of human drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's absorbing all those years of experience.
And then translating that into like its own decision-making process.
Precisely.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, so this emphasis on learning from human behavior, it brings us to another really crucial aspect of AI safety research, explainable AI or XAI.
XAI.
Okay, so I've heard this term before. Is this about like, making AI less of a mysterious black box and more like an open book that we can actually understand?
That's it. Because, a lot of the traditional AI systems, especially the ones based on like these complex neural networks, they can be really opaque.
Okay.
They make predictions, they make decisions, maybe with incredible accuracy.
Yeah.
But it's really, really hard to understand why they made that choice.
It's like trusting a magic 8-ball to make like, life or death decisions.
Right.
Without knowing how it works or what factors are like, influencing its responses.
Exactly. And that lack of transparency, that can be a big, big barrier to people trusting and adopting AI.
Right.
Imagine, a doctor's using an AI system to diagnose a patient.
Yeah.
But they have no idea how it came to that diagnosis.
Or like a judge using AI to make like sentencing decisions.
Right.
But can't explain the logic to the defendant.
Yeah, it gets tricky.
It does get tricky.
So XAI, right, is trying to address those concerns.
Okay.
It's trying to make AI decision-making, transparent, interpretable to humans.
Okay.
So it's developing techniques that can explain AI's reasoning in a way that anyone can understand, even people without a, technical background.
So it's like translating like the AI's complex mathematical language into plain English.
Yeah.
So that we can understand the why behind the what. Okay. I'm starting to see like how all these different approaches, right? Constitutional AI, IRL, and XAI, they all kind of play a part in this bigger puzzle of making AI safer and more aligned with human values.
They do.
But are we there yet?
I mean, we've made good progress.
Yeah.
But AI safety it's an ongoing journey. It's not a destination.
So it's like we're building the plane while we're flying it.
Kinda, yeah. We're constantly learning, we're adapting.
And these techniques they're promising.
They are.
But they still need, they need more work.
Yeah.
They need more testing as AI continues to evolve.
Exactly. And it really requires people from all these different areas to come together and collaborate, right? Computer scientists, ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, the public, to really make sure that AI is used for good, for everybody. I mean, it's not just about the technical side of it. It's about the bigger picture.
Okay. So we've talked about like, how to make AI safer. But what about the potential for like misuse, right?
Yeah.
Even if everybody has good intentions.
Right.
How do we prevent AI from like falling into the wrong hands?
That's a question we have to take seriously. And that's where the Stanford report you mentioned on the opportunities and risks of foundation models, it really gets into that.
Okay.
It emphasizes that we can't just focus on like the technical stuff, right?
Yeah.
We need to think about the whole sociotechnical ecosystem around it.
Okay, so sociotechnical ecosystem.
Yeah.
That sounds a little academic. Can we break that down?
Sure. So think about it like imagine a city, right?
Okay.
You have the physical infrastructure, the roads, buildings, the power grid.
Right.
But then you also have the people, the laws, the culture, the economy.
Yeah.
And all of those things are connected.
Right.
They affect how the city works.
So the sociotechnical ecosystem is kind of like that for AI.
It is, yeah.
It's all those factors, like social, political, economic, technological, that shape how AI is developed, deployed, and ultimately how it impacts our lives.
Exactly.
So it's like it's recognizing that AI isn't just some isolated piece of technology.
Yeah.
It's actually embedded in this whole web of human systems and values.
Which means that those systems, right, they can influence how AI is used, even what kind of AI gets created.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, and it shows that you need people from lots of different fields, to work on this. Computer scientists, ethicists, lawyers, social scientists, policymakers, even the general public,
right,
to deal with the potential risks and benefits.
It's almost like we need like an AI Justice League, bring together all these different minds with their unique perspectives.
Yeah, because, the decisions that we make about AI today, they're going to have a huge impact on society down the road. And one of the key challenges is making sure that these AI systems don't end up just concentrating power in the hands of, a few, or making existing inequalities worse.
Right. Because we've seen, how technology can sometimes widen the gap between the haves and have-nots. We don't want AI to make that problem worse.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have those different voices. Right?
Yeah.
Making sure that AI development and deployment benefits everybody.
Right. So it's not just about, developing AI for AI's sake.
Right.
It's about making sure that it's used to create a more equitable and just society.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that those diverse voices are actually heard?
Well, it's going to take a multi-pronged approach, right?
Okay.
We need more transparency and accountability in how AI is developed. We need ways for the public to participate in these decision-making processes, and we need to educate people about AI so they understand what it can do and what it can't do.
Right. It's like we need a whole new social contract for the age of AI.
It is.
Right. We got to set clear guidelines for how we use this technology responsibly and ethically.
Yeah.
But that brings us back to this issue of potential misuse, right?
Yeah.
Even with the best of intentions, how do we stop AI from falling into the wrong hands?
That's a challenge that we definitely can't just ignore.
Yeah.
And it requires us to be proactive,
Yeah.
We need strong security measures to prevent, unauthorized access to these systems.
But they can't be manipulated or corrupted.
Exactly. And we even need to be thinking about, international cooperation to set norms and regulations for how we develop and use AI.
Especially in areas where the stakes are high.
Yeah, things like autonomous weapons.
Okay, so it's not just about the code itself. It's about the whole ecosystem around AI.
It's the people, it's the institutions, it's the laws, the ethical frameworks.
All these things have to work together to keep AI a force for good.
Exactly. It's a complex challenge, but it's one that, we can't shy away from. I mean, the future depends on it.
That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is.
But also, I think, a reminder of how important this conversation really is.
It is, yeah. And it's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive on AI safety.
Yeah.
It feels like we've covered a ton already.
Yeah.
But those big questions that you brought up about misuse and making sure that everyone's voice is heard as AI just becomes more and more a part of our world, those are what I'm really ready to grapple with.
Yeah, and these are questions that, they're at the heart of what makes AI safety so challenging, but also so important. I mean, it's not just about the technology itself, right? It's about how we as a society decide to use it and to make sure that it's used for good for everybody. And that's really what we're talking about when we say, the sociotechnical ecosystem.
Right. That term, it's one of those terms that it's okay, I get it, but can we break it down a little bit more?
Sure. So, think about it this way. Imagine, we're looking at a city. You got the physical infrastructure, the roads, buildings, the power grid, all that stuff.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. But then you also have the people, right? And the laws and the culture and the economy.
Right. So it's not just the hardware of the city.
No, it's all those things working together that make it function.
Okay. Right.
And the sociotechnical ecosystem for AI, it's kind of like that. It's all the different factors: social, political, economic, technological.
Knowledge.
Exactly, that shape how AI is developed, how it's used, and ultimately how it impacts, all of our lives.
So it's really recognizing that AI isn't just this isolated technology.
Yeah.
It's part of this much bigger, more complex system.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important that we have people from all these different fields working on these problems.
Right.
Computer scientists, obviously, but also, ethicists, lawyers, social scientists, policymakers, and even just the general public.
Right. So everybody has a stake in this.
Everybody does, because the decisions we make about AI now, they're going to have ripple effects for generations to come.
Right. And one of the big challenges here, it seems is making sure that these AI systems, that they don't just concentrate power, in the hands of just a few,
Yeah.
or make, the inequalities that already exist, even worse.
That's a really big concern.
Right.
And it's something that we need to be really, really mindful of as we're developing these technologies because, we've already seen how technology can sometimes, increase those gaps between the haves and have-nots, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to see that happen with AI. We want to make sure that it's used to create a more equitable, more just society.
Right, right. Not one that like reinforces the power structures that already exist and maybe even, makes them worse.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. But how do we do that?
Well, it's not going to be easy. It's going to require, us to really think carefully about how we develop and deploy AI. Should really prioritize transparency, accountability, to create, ways for the public to have a say in how these technologies are used. And we need to make sure that people understand AI. That they're educated about its potential, but also its limitations.
Yeah.
So we can have these informed discussions about how to use it responsibly.
Right. So it's like we need a whole new set of rules of the road for the age of AI.
Yeah, a new social contract, to
Right.
make sure that we're using this technology ethically and that it's aligned with, our values as a society.
Okay. Okay. So we've talked about the importance of diverse perspectives
Mm.
and transparency and accountability and education. But what about the potential for misuse, right?
Right.
Even if everybody has the best intentions, how do we prevent AI from being, used for harmful purposes?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough one. And it's a challenge that we can't ignore.
Right.
It's going to require us to be really proactive. We need to have really robust security measures in place to prevent unauthorized access, to prevent manipulation, to prevent these systems from being corrupted. And we also need to think about, international cooperation,
Wow.
to set global norms and regulations.
Especially in those high stakes areas, right?
Mhm. Right. Like autonomous weapons systems, for example, where the consequences could be really, really severe.
So this isn't just about the code itself, right?
It's not.
It's about the whole system around AI.
It's about the people who are developing it, the institutions that are using it, the laws that are governing it, the ethical frameworks that are guiding it. All these things need to work together.
To make sure that AI stays beneficial.
Exactly. It's a complex challenge, but it's a challenge that we have to face head on. I mean, the future of humanity might very well depend on it.
That's a pretty profound thought.
It is, yeah, and it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, incredibly exciting,
Mhm.
because we have this opportunity to really shape the future of AI, to make
Mhm.
sure that it's used to make the world a better place,
Mhm.
to solve the really, really big problems that we're facing.
And that's what this whole conversation is about, right? It's about recognizing the power of AI, but also, the responsibility that comes with it. And I think it's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of.
Absolutely.
So to our listeners out there, we leave you with this question. If you could contribute to that constitution for AI that we've been talking about,
Yeah.
what principles would you include? What guidelines would you set to make sure that this technology really serves humanity, that it respects our values, and that it helps us create, a brighter future for everyone? Think about it. It's something that we all need to be thinking about.